back to one of our leading stories. President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife are expected to appear in a New York federal district court today. The U.S. Department of Justice charged the couple and their associates with drugs and weapons-related charges. Let's now bring in SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease joining us live from New York. Sherwin, a very good afternoon to you. So quite a number of developments since those U.S. strikes over the weekend in Venezuela. Earlier, of course, we saw those visuals of U.S. authorities transferring a heavily guarded President Maduro from the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn to the federal court in Manhattan. Just give us a sense then where exactly you are and what we're likely to see in court today.
I am outside federal court here in downtown Manhattan with a legion of media that have gathered on the sidewalk, on the pavement tonight. As you can imagine, this has generated a great deal of interest, not only here in the United States, but around the world. A president handcuffed this morning, departing the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, accompanied by a number of heavily armed department DEA agents, drug enforcement official agents here, because essentially he is facing drug charges, and he was escorted onto that helicopter from the Brooklyn Detention Center, made the short trip across the East River to Manhattan at the helipad, not a short distance from where we are, and then transported in armored vehicle to the federal court building you see over my left shoulder here. And I can tell you there is a strong police presence on the ground here. Given the veracity of the charges and certainly the moment we are speaking to here, a sitting president removed from his country, brought to the United States amid questions of violations of international law. So while you have the first initial court appearance here of Mr. Maduro and his wife, there is another theater playing itself out just kilometers away from where I am at the UN Security Council. Within the hour, there will be an emergency session as the diplomatic theater around this process plays itself out. Questions of violations of the UN Charter, questions of violations of international law. The United States, did it have jurisdiction to go into a sovereign nation, storm a compound, a presidential compound, kill the people protecting Mr. Maduro, some 40 we hear, and then transporting him on an aircraft via Cuba's Guantanamo Bay to the United States, essentially for what Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State, has framed as a criminal matter, right? What sort of jurisdiction does the United States have to enforce an indictment in a foreign country? So lots of questions here in terms of how Maduro and his wife are going to plead. Do they have defense attorneys? Have they been appointed by himself, or have they been appointed by the state? These are all questions we have as we await the outcome here at Federal Courthouse in downtown Manhattan, but also the outcome of that emergency session at the United Nations later this morning.
And let's preview that very quickly, Sherwin. I mean, earlier I spoke to an international legal expert saying that there are very specific conditions under which a country can take military action against another, and on top of that, capture its president. So on what legal basis, if any, could the U.S. justify military strikes on Venezuela was the top question. Just give us a sense then, as we head to that UN Security Council meeting, what we're likely to see.
Well, I'll tell you what this journalist standing outside Federal Courthouse in Manhattan understands about when a country can use military force. Article 51 of the United Nations Charter talks about the right to self-defense. The question is was the United States defending itself here? Was there an armed aggression by Venezuela against the United States? These are the legalese terms, terminologies that will have to be ventilated by the experts. But the only other time a member state or a country can attack another militarily is if it is given authorization by the UN Security Council. So we know that the latter hasn't happened. The question is the United States asserting Article 51 of the United Nations Charter in terms of self-defense, or as Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has told all the morning shows this past weekend on Sunday, was that they were enforcing a court order here. Essentially, this is a legal process, a criminal matter, that they were using the United States military to assist the Drug Enforcement Agency officials that subsequently apprehended Mr. Maduro and the First Lady of Venezuela. So I'm sure your legal expert told you that those are the only two scenarios. One doesn't stand here knowing whether those conditions have been met. The United States will certainly assert that. We will hear from Mike Waltz, the U.S. ambassador to the United States, who will be partaking in that Security Council member. But, take a step back, Unati. Understand what we are dealing with here. You have another permanent 5 member of the United Nations Charter, of the United Nations, that is being accused here, akin to what Russia was accused of vis-a-vis Ukraine, of violating the very prescripts the permanent 5 members have been positioned, or certainly elected or put there to uphold. So these are some of the questions that will be ventilated today, no less whether Mr. Maduro will plead here today, what sort of process will unfold here, will the defense seek to have these charges dismissed, when will this matter go to trial? We might be years away from an actual trial here. Does he remain in detention? Will he be given bail? These are all questions we have and don't have the answers to quite yet.
Yeah. Very quickly, Sherwin, before I let you go, just a sentiment and a sense on the ground in terms of what Americans are saying around these developments. Because, we've been hearing a number of things where people are saying that why is it that international law only applies when powerful states choose to observe it? And we are seeing quite a number of people saying that they are not necessarily opposed to Maduro being arrested, but also the way in which this all transpired.
Yeah, it's a good framing of the question, right? The illegitimacy of Nicolas Maduro's election win following, I believe it was the July 2024 election, which a UN panel appointed by the UN Secretary General at the behest of the Venezuelan government, the Maduro government, found that it didn't meet the benchmarks of a free and fair election. Essentially, the claim is that the opposition won by a landslide, and the Supreme Court that was packed by Maduro loyalists, with Maduro loyalists, essentially circumventing the election result in terms of the tabulations that weren't even posted at polling stations. So questions about the legitimacy of Mr. Maduro, but that does not then impugn or allow a country to then violate international law by going in based on that illegitimacy. So there are questions around whether Mr. Maduro should have been in office or not. That seems to be moot right now because he's no longer in office. He's in the courtroom behind me.
Absolutely, Sherwin. Let's leave it there for now, but thank you so much for that. Of course, Sherwin Bryce-Pease just giving us a sense and a preview ahead of that court appearance by Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro and his wife later today, noon in New York City, but 7 p.m. Central African time.